Hello and welcome to the Tuesday Checklist, the weekly show where we take a look at all the brilliant games that are coming out and then talk about how we're really bad at playing them. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice arrives on PS4 this Friday, and Nathan's already made a couple of videos explaining both the story and combat, so check those out if you haven't already. And surprise, surprise, Sekiro is wonderfully challenging. The boss fights in particular will have you shaking with adrenaline, so we got to thinking about all those times we had to really hold our nerve during high pressure encounters against impossible odds. I'm up first with a story of how I heroically overcame one of the hardest boss fights I've ever fought.
So, a boss fight, specifically a boss fight that I got really panicked in before I eventually did win heroically, was the fight against Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 1.
Sephiroth!
Yes. Now, Sephiroth obviously is the main antagonist. That's, I don't need to say main. He is the antagonist of Final Fantasy VII, but he makes a guest appearance in Kingdom Hearts as a really tough optional boss in the Olympus Coliseum arena. He is the platinum match. There are a bunch of optional really tough bosses in Kingdom Hearts, but Sephiroth is definitely the hardest, I think. And when I first fought him, I was not prepared, I was underleveled. I sort of was just curious as to how hard he was going to be, and I think he destroyed me with maybe just one swipe of his sword.
Yeah, like does it take up the whole, or pretty much the whole of the Olympus arena?
His sword is massive. I mean, it's called the Masamune, and it's notoriously...
Sorry, that's the first time I've heard that. It's called the Masamune. It's only funny because you just said it's massive, and then what should we call it? Massive moon.
Masamune, Dave. Right. That's like a real sword's name.
Masamune.
It's really long, incredibly.
You say like massive moon. That's all it made me laugh, obviously.
Anyway, so when I first fought Sephiroth, he destroyed me literally with one blow of his sword. The music barely got time to get going. It was like, and Sora is just dead. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to get to probably the max level I can be. I'm gonna need my best Keyblade. I'm gonna need to get my strategy down to beat Sephiroth. So I went in again, a bit later, a bit more prepared, had like the ultimate Keyblade. Wind magic in the original Kingdom Hearts acts as a shield rather than offensive magic, so I
never knew that when I originally played it.
So I had Eroga, I think, cast, which is basically like protects you a little bit from physical damage. I was able to take some blows from Sephiroth. Obviously, the ideal thing is to not get hit by him. But his sword is so quick and long that it is quite hard to dodge constantly. And then I started landing blows on Sephiroth, and I was realizing that his health bar was just not going down at all. So I was like, what is going on here? Why can't I damage him, for crying out loud? And it took me another 2 or 3 fights to realize that Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts has so much health that for some reason he's got like health beyond the health bar that the game hasn't even programmed in.
God, I think I forgot about that.
So you have to take like 2 or 3 health bars off that you can't even see before you get down to his purple health bar. And after you've got like a certain amount of his health off, he starts doing a move called Sin's Harvest, which is an unavoidable attack you can't dodge. And it takes you down to just 1 hit point remaining.
God, I think I remember that, and I think I got there once and I got so salty I just never did it again.
So horrible. So you've got to basically put yourself in a position when you start hearing him announcing that he's about to do this attack, he sort of stands still and goes, Sin's Harvest, blah, 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 and you know it's coming. So you've got to put yourself in a position as far away from Sephiroth as possible so that you've got, and get your elixir ready to throw. Like, have my shortcut menu open. I had an item box full of elixirs, basically ready, that all I have to do is press X as soon as this attack connects, so that instantly, as soon as you've gone down to 1 hit point, you've got to throw it at the exact right time, that bam, you're instantly at full health straight away, because as soon as he's done Sin's Harvest, he just comes for you, and if he lands a blow, it doesn't matter how good you are at the game, you're dead. And I must have lost to Sephiroth maybe 7 or 8 times at this stage. I was at a stage where I was maxed out, my level was maxed out, I couldn't get any stronger, so it was like, this is it now. if I'm not good enough to kill Sephiroth here, then I'm just not good enough to kill Sephiroth. And I'd managed to get him down to his last bar of health. And I knew that maybe a couple more decent combos and he was done. And he did his last, he started doing Sin's Harvest again.
Oh, I can feel your panic.
And I'd already survived 2 rounds of Sin's Harvest. But you get to that stage where you know that, oh my god, this might be the last one I have to survive, and it got all kind of panicky and shaky. And I don't know how I managed to avoid the attack that came in, but he swiped at me with his sword, and I think I either dodged it or I did some kind of incredibly lucky parry with my sword, but I managed to not get hit by the attack, then throw the elixir on me. And then I had like, I think it's called Ars Arcanum, which is one of Sora's special attacks. Just blindly did that, just pressed that and just hoped. And Sora just dived in there and carved out the last of his health. And I won. And it was unbelievable.
Right, so for my entry, I could have gone with Bloodborne, which, to be fair, was the most I've ever panicked in my life. But but to be fair, I've already spoken about that story when we were talking about moments where we got too confident. Because literally, I mentioned how I was like sweating and my screaming, and my mum had to come in, and so did my brother to calm me down. So I thought I'd go something different. So for this entry, I'm going to talk about the Resident Evil remaster, or the remake, for the PlayStation 4. Now,
Resident Evil 1?
Yes, the first one. Now, have you guys played that one at all?
I surprisingly have played it, but only, I don't know how far I got.
You're like a Resi super fan. I play them all.
I can't get enough.
But my entry for this one is the Crimson Heads in Resident Evil.
I didn't get as far as the Crimson Heads.
Oh, Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, Nelly, they're horrible.
Bail.
Absolutely hate. So what they do is, are you aware of their presence, what a Crimson Head is?
Isn't it like a sort of next level zombie?
Yeah, so in the original Resident Evil, the one on the PlayStation 1, you just sort of chugged your way through zombies, and then you know that moment where in a Resident Evil game you're like, oh yeah, like, you know, this is easy now, like, you know, so bam bam, zombies done, I'm gonna solve the puzzles, and then it chucks in another creature known as the Hunters, and that's where the game picks up again.
Right.
So for the Resident Evil remake, you get used to the zombies, chugging through them, and then there's one zombie that's always teasing you on the floor in a very thin corridor. Now this zombie, like, you just presume that it's dead and stuff, so you can walk over him at first and, you know, no biggie, nothing wrong with him at all. And then you learn the mechanic that you have to burn some zombies once you've killed it.
Yeah.
As you may have noticed, zombies are still on the floor once you've killed them. So when you've learned this mechanic, you have to go back into that corridor to progress. And then you might see the zombie, you might think, oh, you know what, he's annoying me, I'm gonna set him alight, you know, then he's out the way. But nope, this zombie gets straight back up when you have no idea what it's expecting. Like, he just comes up and you're just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And not only that, they're faster, they're more dangerous, and they just look terrifying, and they've got these really long claws, and they're just like, just completely coming off. They are terrifying. And
do they have crimson heads? Crimson means red.
That's why they're called crimson. Yes, they are red as well.
Right.
They are red.
Okay, right, good.
Yeah, so and then literally from that point onwards, all normal zombies, they pretty much replace them. So then the whole game you are there. If you hate them, the whole game, what was once safe is become an absolute nightmare. And every time I hear one of them talk, or I see it at the end of a corridor, you know, with the locked camera angles, and then he just sort of senses me, and I just see him running down the corridor with his arms out, charging at me with his horrible noises, I always panic. I think this is a situation, whereas with Bloodborne, with the Cleric Beast, when I redid that boss, I wasn't panicking as much. Whereas with the Crimson Heads, I continually panic. They always just get me ever since I first encountered them. In fact, when I first encountered them, I didn't even continue playing the game because I was so panicked from them. I think it pretty much killed me because, you know, when you're so panicked, you just lose all sense of what it is you've got to do. And of course, in a game like Resident Evil, you have to try and, you know, think about, are you going to shoot it? Are you going to run? Where are you going to go? Where are you heading in the map? But with my pure panic from the Crimson Heads, all that goes out the window. I'm just thinking, okay, right, shotgun, here we go. Or just, okay, there's a door, go in. So that is just, Crimson Heads always freak me out, always make me panic, and I absolutely hate them. But because of that, it's my favorite horror game.
Right, well, you might be surprised to hear that actually I found it quite difficult to think of a time when I'd panicked in a game, and not because I don't panic, but I think maybe I just black it all out, just block it out, because when I've been sat here listening to you guys talk, I've realised that actually I've panicked loads in games, and I didn't want to do Bloodborne again, although obviously that is a natural place to start. I've spoken at length about the Bloodstarved Beast that was, it turns out, an optional boss that drove me absolutely insane. I mean, any number of horror games, obviously, lots of panic. But Rob actually reminded me, thanks so much, Rob, of this, my particular entry, which is a horror game, and is Resident Evil 7. And I think it kind of fits the bill, but in reverse, and I'll explain what I mean. So when Resi 7 came out, you may be aware, it's playable in VR. Fantastic, thanks Capcom. This is, I mean, we always talk about Resident Evil, and we always talk about the weird mix it has of being compelling whilst also being terrifying. And even in VR, which I do genuinely believe amps up the terror by a factor of 10, and I don't know what that means because I'm not a mathematician, but lots. It is also even more compelling. So when Resi 7 came out, Rob had been playing it for access, but thought that people would like to see me play a little chunk of it in VR. So Rob just dropped me in having dinner with the Baker family, which was absolutely lovely. I mean, just imagine, like, that's at least, you know, Rob, when you got to that bit, not in VR, you'd played the game up until that point, you had an understanding of the controls and what was going on in the story or whatever. I literally opened my eyes and I'm sat round a horrendous dinner table with horrendous people who are, you know, like eating guts, basically. I mean, you can't be sure what that is. Just grey, awful. This little bit of gameplay, I basically had to escape down a hatch, and I was really, really terrified throughout, but the worst bit was when I was waiting for the scare, and this is like what always happens to me in horror games. It's the like anticipation of the scare. I can't handle it. So going through doors, I'm always expecting for somebody to jump out. In VR you can lean, which is both brilliant and terrifying. Again, it like ramps it up by loads because I'm waiting for that moment, which never came. In the end, the scare isn't that bad. Like, you're walking down a terrifying corridor, admittedly, and yes, I was terribly panicked and I got into this awful situation. It was kind of hilarious, really, where you just have to try and lose, is his name Frank?
Jack Baker.
Right, Jack. You have to try and lose Jack on this kind of loop. Like, there's no way out apart from this hatch that you need to get down, and he will just follow you, and you are faster than him, and you can lose him like in a little warren of kind of like doorways. But I never managed to do that. I was just like, didn't have the presence of mind for that. I was just like, keep going, you know, just keep going around, and I'll try it this time, and I'll try it this time. And amazingly in VR, I don't know if if this is like exactly how it works, but I was kind of like able to dodge his spade with my own head, which was amazing. And it was completely, I was like ducking and like slipping. It was a completely natural like reaction to what was going on, but occasionally it would work. He would have a big swing and I'd be like, nope, which bought me some extra time. Anyway, it took me about 8 goes, but if you watch it, you'll see I've become really determined to do it. Like, the panic, although I am panicking, it gave me a kind of like determination to succeed. And also, I mean, like, once you've been hit in the face once by a spade, you can get hit in the face 8 times by a spade. You know what's coming. So I guess the fear did ebb away a little bit. Luckily, I did it. And that is the only 10 minutes of Resident Evil 7 in VR that I have played and will ever play. And I do feel a little bit sad about that, but also very, very happy about it.
My example of a battle during which I panicked has already been on the channel. It's already been seen. I've got an interesting perspective on it though. So what I'm talking about is the fight against, it's Liquid, right? At the end of Metal Gear Solid.
I don't pretend you don't know.
Liquid, probably. They've all got ridiculous names. The fight on top of Metal Gear Rex.
Yes.
A small, difficult to control section of the game, which me and Dave struggled with valiantly in our series Metal Gear Stupid, episode 10. You can go back and watch it.
He's put his little excuses in how he phrases it already. Difficult to control.
It is difficult to control.
In a small little area.
Do you know?
Game.
So for those of you who haven't seen it, what happened was me and Dave played Metal Gear Solid all the way through because we'd not played it before and it was ridiculous, and Rob watched from a different room and got angry. That was like the idea for the video.
That is the format, yeah.
And you know, there were loads of comments and we were enjoying it. The reception was really good for the series, so we were quite pleased with it in general. There were lots of people like, these guys are truly awful. How'd you get a game? This is how they all sound. How'd you get a job playing video games if you were this bad at them? And at the time I was like, can't they just enjoy the series like everybody else? What's happening to the comments? To explain my initial experience of the boss battle, we're at the end of the game. We've been playing it for about 12 or 13 hours at that point. It is from the past. It holds up really well, but it's from the past. There's various difficulties in it. My mind was probably a bit frazzled. I was like, I just hope that we cannot embarrass ourselves on this last boss. So my initial panic was that, Liquid is running around the top of this platform, on the top platform on top of Metal Gear Rex. You have to kind of chase him and kick him, and then he sometimes charges you or throws you off the side and you kind of cling on. And it's your health bar versus his health bar, and there's a countdown to some bombs going off. So you have to kill him before the bombs go off and not die yourself. And obviously, because it's like a race between these two health bars, it's like quite stressful anyway. On top of that, we're tired. On top of that, I know that the comments are going to be all over me and Dave anyway. So there's one, actually Dave's at the controls for the worst one, the absolute worst one. I think we did it about 7 times in the end. Right. But the absolute worst one was when you just needed to blow on his face, man. You needed nothing left. And I think this is try number 5. We were away in at this point, and I'd messed it up. The first time I messed it up, I dropped down, the bombs went off, and I'm so angry. I just go, good. I'm glad I deserved that. You do it, and you get right to the end, and that's the one where it's you and I getting panicked. Our voices go up an octave. We're like, we just need one more hit. It's gonna be right. And then it affects your judgment, and you dive in too early, and it all goes wrong. So that was my initial experience of having lived through it. I was like, oh, it's just a classic boss battle, isn't it? We've tried it, we've got close, and then eventually we've got over it. This will be fun for everybody. I watched the episode back today, guys, and wow, what were we doing, Dave? Honestly, we spent the entire first, I was watching it for the first time actually, because I've not watched episode 10, and Robbie's getting so angry he takes off all of his he takes off all of his Christmas stuff, says over and over that Christmas is cancelled. Dan has to take away Rob's screen for a little bit. It just goes blank because I guess Rob's getting dressed again or just swearing. The tries are mounting up and up and up, and I am thinking everything that Rob is saying. We're running around the platform trying to throw him. Why are we trying to throw him? We just have to punch and kick him. It was crazy.
No idea. I don't know. You're looking at me for answers, Nate. I was there making the same mistakes you were. I don't know.
It was crazy. What we were doing was wrong. And also, there's the first go that I had. I have no idea how I fell off the side of that platform so many times. Just walking over and just hanging off, and then you lose a few seconds. Oh man, it was absolutely. So I have had this double experience of panicking. Once being the person who was panicked, and today just being like, oh my god, just get up on there and just punch that man in his stupid face.
Rob, throughout this entry, I've been looking at the bookcase, the bookshelf, to see, to try and find Sephiroth, and then I remembered that you baked him into a cake.
Yeah. So he's downstairs.
Still missing an arm.
With only one arm now.
Left of him, yeah.
A one-winged angel, you could say.
Yes, exactly.
Hey.
Well done, Rosie. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm here all night.
I don't get it.
There's no point making Final Fantasy jokes in front of Dave, Rosie. He's not a person of culture like us and all our lovely viewers. Let us know in the comments what boss fights or similar left you with a cold sweat. Then give us a like if you enjoyed the video and hit that notification bell so you're always up to date when a new Tuesday checklist goes live.
For the players.